In this video, I'll show you how to paint a Black Templar Space Marine using the new Indomitus models. Let's get started with this Black Templar. So this is one of the new Indomitus Assault Marines. And you may have noticed that I'm not using my usual paint pot with blue tack. I'm actually using this holder, which has come from Cobalt Keep. They sent me some stuff. I'm not being paid to promote them. I'm not have any association with them at the moment, but basically what this is a magnet, so you get a special base from them. I don't know if you can see that in the light, but it's got some slots there, a magnet in the middle, and it slots into the groove of this holder very nicely. And then you can just basically line them all up, and it makes it really easy to paint. So that's the first thing to notice about this video. The second thing is we're just going to base all this armour with some Abaddon Black. So we've primed the Marine with Chaos Black, and we just want to get this Abaddon Black, it's nice and thin Abaddon Black, all over the armour, just so that we can get some consistency, because the Abaddon Black's a little different in comparison to the Chaos Black spray. So if we make mistakes and we've got to go and tidy up later on, then it's obviously a lot easier to tidy it up if the colours all match. So nice and straightforward to get started, get that finished, and we'll come back and we'll have a look at starting the metallics. Once that Abaddon Black is dry, we can just go in and start to base up the metallics. So I'm using iron hand steel for this, and on this particular model we've got things like the bionic arm, we've got parts of the weapon as well, so just do the parts that you want to be silver. And just work your way around the model. You may need two coats in some places, but in terms of some of the other bits, obviously we've got the blade of the chain blade, got the vents on the backpack here. Apologies if you can hear my neighbours. For some reason they've decided to shout at each other, even though they're about a metre away from each other. So there we go. Seem to have quietened down now, maybe they've heard me. So just work your way around the model, find all those little bits of silver metallics, paint them with the iron hand steel. Don't forget the kind of parts on the Marine head, and then we'll come back, wash and highlight next. With all our silver done, we just want to shade it down a little bit, and the colour we're going to use for this is Nuln Oil. So just work it around all the bits that you painted silver. Try not to let any collect too much in any of the recesses. And once that's dry, we'll come back and we'll give it a highlight. If you make any mistakes like I have there, you can just touch it up with some Abaddon Black before we go on to the next stage. Highlighting that silver is really easy. I'm just going to take a little bit of chrome from Vallejo Model Colour. Now, if you can't find chrome anywhere, then you can use Stormhose Silver from Citadel. I just prefer chrome because I feel it covers a little better. What we're looking to is we're looking to just catch the edges of some of these bits that we've painted silver. So this is a really nice and straightforward task, and you should be able to get through it quite quickly per mini. When it comes to things like gun barrels, plasma barrels, what I like to do is rather than kind of edge all the way through, is I like to kind of just catch the top and then run that edge down there, because it's kind of a different shape. It's not such a hard edge, so it's going to catch the light in a slightly different way. So there we go. Work your way around, get that chrome on, and then we'll do the leather next. So we're going to base all the leather with some Dryad Bark. So we're going for a kind of worn leather effect, and Dryad Bark will cover quite nicely in just one go. You may need two in some areas. Don't forget the belt and all the kind of canteens, baggage, pouches, etc. And the other thing we're going to do whilst we've got this Dryad Bark out, we're going to use it on the purity seals to base them. We're also going to base the inserts of the shoulder pads. Now you might, obviously it's a Black Templar, so these are going to be white. Now if we can just lighten them a little bit with some of the paint we've got on the palette to start with, it just makes it easier, and when we go to kind of Corax White later, it'll cover a lot easier. And then the other thing we're going to do with the Dryad Bark is we're going to base all the gold areas. So the chest eagle, for example, we'll base that with Dryad Bark. We've also got some decisions to make about the tilt plate as to whether we go for something funky in terms of design, and I think I am, so I'm going to paint this with Dryad Bark as well. You don't have to do this, and obviously not every person will have a tilt plate, but I'm going to do a half and half with the tilt plate. So I'm going to do half red, half white, and then I'm going to use some decals to put some iconography on there just to kind of make it stand out. So there we are, get that finished, get everything that's going to be gold, white, leather, painted with the Dryad Bark, and then we'll come back and start to highlight the leather up next. Next up, we want to highlight that leather, and the colour for this is Gorthor Brown. So we're looking to catch the edges. There's a little bit much on my brush then, and the easiest way to do that is just pull it down the edges like that, and that'll kind of give you a nice easy highlight. And just have a look at the kind of the shape on here as well, and you can see that there's a little bit of differentiation going through there. And then we've got the kind of the cantinas, which we're going to do the same. We're going to go for kind of a distressed, scuffed up leather on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to put another highlighter on it after this. And then we'll use a kind of a glaze wash to kind of filter it a little bit, which potentially sounds more complicated than it really is, but actually it's really easy, really simple to do. And the other thing I'm going to do with the shoulder pads, I'm just going to put a layer of Gorthor Brown on them, just to brighten them up. So just a thin layer, because it'll just make it so much easier when we come to add the white to the shoulder pads later on. So get that done, and then we'll highlight everything up next again. What we want to do now is scuff up that leather a little bit, and we're going to do this using some Karak Stone. We're just going to use a little bit on our brush, and we're just going to dab at some of these kind of edges here. We're not trying to do anything particularly precise. It is useful to have a good point on your brush for this, because this just will help accentuate the kind of worn leather look. And same on the front here with the pouches and the canisters where they'd have been worn through use. I mean, if you're out on crusade, your equipment might get a little damaged, a little worn. So there we are. Go around, put as much on as you want. Start off small and then kind of work your way up in case you think that you'd like a little bit more on there. And then we can always come back and add some more later. Okay, so let that dry and let's put that filter on next. So that filter is going to be Agrax Earthshade, and this is just as simple as brushing it over all the kind of the leather, and you can see there it starts to blend everything down a little bit. And then you can control this as much or put as much or as little as you want. If you think, oh, it's not quite brown enough for me, then you can put a little bit more Agrax Earthshade on. I think I might put a little bit extra just on here as well. And once it's dry, what I'll do is I'll add it. I'll dab it on. I won't just brush it on like I did the first time. I'll dab it on just in specific areas. While we're waiting for our Agrax Earthshade to dry, we're going to start the gold, and the colour we're going to use for this is Liberator Gold. And this is why we went for the Dryad Bark first, because it gives a nice base for Liberator Gold, and you'll just need hopefully just one coat of Liberator Gold. Just take your time putting it on. If you do overspill, then it's not the world's biggest issue, because you can just touch up with the Abaddon Black, but obviously it does just make things a little quicker. So work this on all the bits that you want to be gold, and then we'll come back and we will shade it next. To shade the gold, we'll go back to Agrax Earthshade, and we'll just work that in to all the recesses, and that'll help dull down the gold a little bit more. So we are working onto all the bits where you've painted the gold, and then we'll come back and we'll just pop a little bit more Liberator on just to highlight it a little bit next. Once that Agrax Earthshade wash is dry, you can just take a little bit of Liberator Gold and just catch some of those kind of sharper edges. Just highlight out some of the gold just to pop a little bit of bright shine in there. So once that gold is done, we're going to work on the white next. So it'll be the shoulder pauldrons and also the kind of the plasma coil in the weapon. So the colour we're going to use is Corax White. So make sure it's not too thick, add some water to it. I'm just going to paint it all over the pauldrons, and you can see there it's not covering great first time, but as we add more coats it'll slowly start to build up. And the other area we're going to do is the plasma coils. Don't worry if it leaks a little onto the some of the black, because that'll give us kind of like a false glow effect when we add the final kind of colouring to it. So work your way around, take your time, be really patient. Let that white really dry before you go back to it, because otherwise you'll pull the paint and that'll leave a really awful mark there. 2, maybe 3 coats, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at shading it. There we go. So I took 3 coats of Corax White and we've got a nice white coverage. In all honesty, when I do the rest of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray, when I prime, I'm going to prime white first, then I'm going to use some Humbrol Mascol over the white, then I'm going to prime it with the black, because that'll just save quite a bit of time through the process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shade these shoulder pads. I've gone in, I've retouched up the black a little, and we're going to shade the shoulder pads with Skeleton Horde, but we're going to kind of give them a little bit of a dirty look. So remember, I always say we're going to work quite quick here, so we need 2 brushes, one to put it on, and one that's clean, but it's just a little damp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Skeleton Horde on with the one brush. You can see, don't worry about it, how it's kind of reacting there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clean damp brush and I'm going to brush away that Skeleton Horde a little. And that's going to give me that kind of nice dirty look to the white. When that dries, that's going to look really effective. So you can just go in, take the paint away rather than put it on. And that looks really nice. So do that for both sides, and then we'll come back and have a look at it, and then maybe we'll play with it a little more. So I'm quite happy with how that's come out. It's yellowed the shoulder pads quite nicely. Now, if you want to just pop a little kind of highlight on the white, you can do with a little bit of white scar. And what you're going to do with that is just pull it along the edges of the tilt shield, colouring kind of some of the studs there. And when it comes to the shoulders, just want to draw a line along that kind of top edge there, just to add a kind of small light spot, not too much to use. And I should have said, sorry, my fault, the last step as well, when it comes to that purity seal, I'm going to do that. So I put the Corax White on, I'm going to put the Skeleton Horde over it as well, just to highlight it. For the plasma on the pistol, I'm just going to use some Aethermatic Blue, because I want a kind of blue plasma. You can use whatever colour works for you. Just paint that on there, let that dry. Really easily, simple plasma effect. If you want, you can go in and highlight it a little bit, but for me, that's perfect. Next up, I'm going to do the other half of the tilt shield as well as the purity seal, and the colour I'm using for this is Mephiston Red. And what you want to do, good point on your brush, you just want to kind of about halfway and just draw your line straight down. That's a thick line, but it's okay because I'm going to paint the other side of it. So there we are, just paint that tilt shield, and then the wax on the purity seal as well. So what I'm going to do when that dries, I'm going to pop some Agrax Earthshade over it, and this side then I'm just going to give it a second coat so it's a solid colour, and pop some Agrax over these over the studs. And then we'll come back, we'll highlight it next. Just take a little bit of Evil Sunz Scarlet then, just to highlight up the red. Nice and simple. Looking for those highest points, and then just make sure you don't have too much on your brush. I think I did then. I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. We're also going to draw it down the centre line of the tilt shield. make sure we catch those edges. And that gives us a nice red highlight. So that's that done. I think we're pretty much ready to move on to the armour. So we'll do that next. So if you haven't already, go back around the model and find anywhere where you may have made some mistakes over the black. Got some paint over it, and just reinstate that black. And then we'll get highlighted. I've just noticed one there as I'm talking to you, so just going to paint that over with some black I've still got on my palette. So the first highlight we're going to use is Mechanicus Standard Grey. We're kind of going for a cool grey highlight on the armour. So what we want to do is a little bit on your brush, not too much, and we just want to catch all those raised edges that we can with the brush. And just have a think about which of these are kind of jumping out. For some edges you're going to need to just have good brush control like there. But in the main it should be fairly straightforward. You do the plasma pistol the same as well. If you need to move the model around so that you can catch the edges, then by all means do that. So we're not going to worry about things we can't see. So we've got a nice big edge through there. But some of these edges at the back we can only see, so we're not going to try and ram the brush in there just to get those highlights, because in all honesty the light's probably not going to catch them anyway. So work your way around all those sharp edges, get that Mechanicus grey on them, helmet as well, and we'll come back and just put that last kind of sharp edge in there. Going to move on to Dawnstone then for the next part of the highlight, and we just want to put this in the areas that's going to catch the most light. So you can see there it's quite a bit brighter than the Mechanicus Standard Grey, so it's just really the sharpest edges, and not all the way along, just kind of towards the middle, because that's where the light's going to catch. And then we've got kind of sharp edges on the shoulder pads here, on the van brace. Don't worry if you make a mistake, you can always go back in with some Abaddon Black just to tidy up. So make your way around the rest of the model, get the armour done. And that's the end of this tutorial. So we're going to put some decals on. Now the decals I get are from the Mighty Brush, so I'll pop a link to that in the description. And I'll also, I'm going to paint the face, but I'll paint the face, I've got a tutorial for that already, so I'll put a link to that in the cards up to the top right of your screen now. Otherwise, we'll pop him on the turntable once he's all finished. So there we have it. The decals are applied, a little bit of matte varnish over them, and I think they look really good. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have, please leave a like and a comment down below. I really appreciate your feedback. It really does help me to improve the content I put out there for you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, don't forget that you can support me through Patreon using the links in the description. You'll also see a link to my recommended equipment, and you'll also see links to getting up to 20% off all your Games Workshop and any other wargaming needs you may have. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.